It's all yours.
Good morning, everybody. It is the end of August, and we it's shocking. Every week that goes by seems like it's 5 minutes. Time absolutely flies. But there's one thing that we have to maintain in our minds, that the slaughterhouse of failure is not in my destiny. I will persist until I succeed. And that's from the ancient scroll, Mark 3, Og Mandino. So today we've Dan and I have got a little chat about from a book of Influence and Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. Just because he's Italian, I had nothing to do with it. It's Dan's choice. So anyway, it's a widely adopted classic, and it's about influence and persuasion. And so, you know, he's obviously been very successful in his sales. So that's the topic for today. So, Dan, would you like to start? And
Yeah, sure. So this book is pretty fascinating. It goes into a lot of different details about the science of influence and persuasion, and how it can be used negatively in the wrong way, but also how you can use these rules with integrity. So that's what I think is important to point out today on the call is that we can use these rules in our business, but we can do them with integrity to help people make a decision that could be life-changing for them, and have them join our team and help them along the way to help them be successful. And, you know, there's a psychology to everything that we do. Every interaction we have in business or our interpersonal relationships, our relationships with our animals, there's a psychology to all of that. It's no different in what we're doing. This is it's very psychologically driven. For a lot of people, it's a big decision. And so we have to give them what they need, but some people need a little bit of persuasion or influence. And there's some ways to do that I feel that can be done ethically. So I recommend this book to everyone that may be interested in taking a deeper dive into this. We're obviously not going to be able to cover it all. He has 6 basic principles through all of his research, and this is a best-selling book on the New York Times bestsellers list. And they can be used in an ethical manner in everyday life and in business. The first one is reciprocity. Second is commitment. Third is consensus. Fourth is sympathy. Fifth is authority. And the sixth one is scarcity. So the first one that we're going to cover is reciprocity. And I think this is evident in a lot of our daily life. We just don't really realize it. When, in the world that we live in now, we see things all the time, free webinar, free this, free that online, trying to draw you in. And the whole concept is basically to give you something of perceived value for free. So you then psychologically feel like you need to give something back or participate or whatever that may be.
Yeah, there's a feel good. There's a kind of a bonding thing that goes on that with a feel good, and you have that reciprocity feeling. It's not only with free things, but it's sometimes in life we apply those things. We've helped somebody resolve a family problem or with their kids, or we've given some advice, or we've helped somebody along the way, and the next thing, or somebody's helped us along the way, and we feel like, my gosh, this guy or this person helped me. Is there some way I can help that person? I wonder, I'd like the opportunity of, and that's where we say what goes around comes around in some way. If somebody's done something for me, I feel, wow, that was so spontaneous. It was just out of his heart or her heart that he did that. Wow. And that's where you feel that reciprocity, and you say, wow, I really wish I could do something, in return.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. It's a social norm that we don't even really think about. We do it without thinking about it. It just plays into our psychological being. We just have that urge to give back to somebody who's done something for us or given us something or whatever it may be. But the basic concept is a positive action with a positive action, right? You do something positive, and that's where the concept of kind of paying it forward comes from, and different concepts like that we've seen pop up over the last few years. And it can be super, super powerful if it's done in the right way and it's done ethically and morally in business. And so I encourage you guys to take a little bit deeper dive into this on your own time and learn a little bit more about it. It can be super powerful, and I think with what we're doing, it can help a lot. So the second one, one thing I wanted to mention really quickly was I was reading an article, and one of the things that really struck me about this was when the whole Ethiopian famine was going on, the country was really hurting. There were people very, very ill and dehydrated and malnourished and all of these things. And what was interesting to me about that was at that time when they were seeking donations and things from all over the world, they happened to give money to Mexico because there was a big earthquake in Mexico at the same time. And even though their country was hurting, they still gave money back. And it turns out that the whole thing was based on $5,000 that Mexico had given them back in the 1930s at some point. So even there was this urge to be reciprocal. And so that's just one example. There's, if you look in your daily life, there's probably, dozens of examples of that happen on a daily basis within our own personal lives. So the second,
sorry, we do actually, it becomes embedded in us, acts of kindness or acts of something that somebody spontaneously done for us, or that we've done for somebody else. We do that spontaneously, but sometimes it's a result of somewhere along the line somebody having done something for us, where we can understand that empathy.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So the second point that he made was commitment. And we talk about that all the time in our business. Just asking for after we have an initial conversation with somebody, asking them to follow up, and when can you set up another meeting? That can be very influential and persuasive in getting them to just make that commitment to a second meeting to learn more about what we're doing. So commitment plays a large role in persuasion and influence as well. And I think we can use that to our advantage to move people forward in this business. Just something as simple as asking for a commitment for them to take some sort of action.
Well, the commitment to take an action is of course what it's about. However, the thing is commitment and consistency. And it's that once we make a choice or take a stand, we work to behave consistently with that commitment in order to justify our decisions. I'm quoting what he says. Well, when we justify our decisions, sometimes, that decision, not sometimes, most times, that decision needs to be revisited to see if we're still on the right track. So even though we've taken a decision, we've committed to do something, we still need to be able to reassess. And that's why, we joking talk about this is why we need a board of directors. We need somebody to help us see the wood from the trees, constantly tweaking our journey, because we've made a decision, we've committed to something, we're consistent to it, but then we get curveballs coming all the time, and we have to then reassess that, but we need help to do that. So that's why when the advantage of that we have is working as in our teams, when we're able to look at the bigger picture. It's like, looking from a helicopter to see the forest in which we are. And so the consistency and the decision, the justification of our decision needs to be revisited very often.
Absolutely. You know, not only our personal.
You're breaking up, Dan. You're breaking up. Can't hear you. Can you hear now? I think Dan's got a problem in his area with the internet right now. Can you hear us, Dan? Hello,
Okay.
Dan.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Can now, yeah. You broke up completely.
Okay. I don't know what's going on.
Okay.
So I'm going to move on to the third tenet of this whole book, and that is consensus. And we talk about consensus all the time in terms of validation and three-way calls, and you know, hearing other people's commitment to what we're doing, you know, getting others to validate what we're talking about and what we're doing, the science, the technology, how we're being successful with physicians and medical device sales reps. So hearing that consensus is, you know, hearing what other people think can be a huge persuader, because people don't feel like they're out on an island and they're making a decision that others aren't making. And so people want to kind of fit in. And all of these kind of tie into each other, the reciprocity, commitment, consensus. You know, one of the things that came to mind is that, you know, these can be positive or they can be negative consensus. And, you know, doing what everybody else is doing can be good, but I'm sure we have all heard from our mother growing up when we did something wrong. And she said, you know, if somebody told you to jump off a bridge, would you do it? That's an example of a negative consensus, right? You know, trying to do what everybody else is doing. But there's lots of positive consensus, and you know, we have, you know, the studies and, you know, other people on the team. We have a great, like Lawrence said, we have a great team put together, you know, between all of us collectively, and then our own personal teams, and that can just be a huge persuader.
You know, in times of uncertainty, there's a collective uncertainty or collective fear or something like that. And that's where we see the social coming together. You know, we see the attendance at churches, and you know, there's a collective bonding, if you will, and there's a social warmth that comes from that. So this outside, I'd say pressure, but this outside circumstance creates this warmth between us.
Yeah, you know, you see that in lots of different facets of society, not just church, but you know, sports teams, and
Yeah,
you know, political, you know, Democrats, Republicans. You know, it's the consensus of just what a group of people that you want to be a part of or want to feel a part of, you know, helps with that decision making process, and you know, can be persuasive and influential. And you know, it's really just about, you know, connecting with people and then hearing people that have similar viewpoints to you. So the psychology of that, and what we're doing is, you know, being able to connect with people and show them that there's a consensus on this through the studies, through three-way calls and validation and all those different things. And that's how these things all kind of tie together. But, you know, consensus is a big part of what we do. You know, we always talk about three-way calls and third-party validation, and you know, the healthcare symposium is a consensus tool, right? We're getting people out there to hear that the scientists know what they're talking about, and the scientists have the studies, and they've done the work to prove what we're telling our physicians and potential distributors and things like that. You know, and then all these other things that we do, you know, we do team calls and you know, our Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning calls, you know, all of those can help build consensus.
yeah, and you know, when we're talking about this feeling of consensus, in the churches and in some of these organizations, that's when we become charitable. You know, we want to help everybody. We feel that we've got that common bond, and now we want to help the next one, and we have that warm and fuzzy feeling. So the whole thing, for example, about going to Utah, the meetings there are to invite people to see what we see and get excited. And oh, I wish I could share this with you. It's so cool. It's so nice. And it's that positive feeling, those vibes that we have that we want to share with everybody to bring everybody up to wherever they can.
Yeah, that's a positive consensus, right? We're bringing people out there to see what we have, see what we see, and then hope they're going to share that with physicians and medical device distributors to help build our teams, but to get this to as many people as possible through the physicians, and then that builds consensus between their patients and themselves to see what we're doing and see the benefits of what we're doing, and nutrition, high quality nutritional supplementation, and being able to prove that they're working with the biophotonic scanner. So it all kind of, it's circular. It all kind of works its way back around, and you use all of those tools on a consistent and regular basis to be successful.
And I think it's important that, for example, when we're talking about going to a fly-in or going to an event or something like that with the people, with our teams, or with people that we're inviting or potential team members, it's an excitement of being able to share something positive, to share something that will benefit them. And it's not us trying to push something or sell something or anything like that. That comes by itself. But the main objective is always to try and help people see what we see, to help them understand the benefits of what we have and what we are privileged to have with the scientists and products and so on. So it's a warm feeling. It's a feeling of trying to incorporate everybody into something cool.
Yeah, I was on a call, or I talked to one of my team members who had a call with a dentist, or a meeting with the dentist the other day, and he said, that dental compendium that we have and the bone formula product information page was what drove this thing over the edge, and that dentist is going to be getting a scanner for one of his practices, and probably getting another one for his second office shortly thereafter. But it's that, I think that dental compendium for a dentist creates consensus, right? They see that there's all these studies out there, and we have those other tools available to us, the webinar, the dental webinars and things like that. And that's all part of building that consensus. So we have all the tools. We say this all the time. We have all the tools available to us to be successful in this business. It's just, we talked about it last week. It's knowing what tools to use and what you want to put in your Swiss Army knife to help you be successful.
And I think just on that point, the title of the thing is actually social proof. And I think one of the things about this is that when somebody who is in our team and maybe a bit of an introvert, or maybe a bit shy, or maybe not like to speak in public or stuff like that, by having this consensus opinion and consensus team, that person can actually flourish and reach levels that he or she didn't think they could do because they're too shy or something like that. Speak in public, for example, or make a presentation. So I can't make a presentation. A person might be a genius in his or her field, but may not be able to communicate it. But by having this social consensus, if we will, then we can help those people come forward as well, flourish.
Absolutely. That's what part of the team concept is all about. And that's how we're building our team, is to help everybody flourish. And we talked about that, we all have strengths and weaknesses, and just figuring out what those are, and then using those tools to help each other. The fifth point that he made is sympathy, and people are more likely to agree with those who they deem as similar to them. And so usually when I'm talking to somebody, I spend my first connection with them, I spend a lot of time just trying to connect on a personal level, find out what they like to do, what they do in their spare time, how they, things that they enjoy, and just kind of make a connection on a personal level. So, because then we've already made a connection, right? And we've created some kind of not a consensus, but then there's also we can sympathize with each other because we have similar thoughts and beliefs. And then when you start to talk to them about this business, that just kind of carries over into the business side of things.
Yeah, there's something called quantum physics, which is an energy which we can't see, we don't even know. But the first thing you said, Dan, was the science of. I'm glad you said the science of, because until 20, 30 years ago, some of the stuff we're talking about today was considered mumbo jumbo. When we talk about sympathy, and we didn't understand it, we just like someone, we don't. There are books written about all these things now, and these are like a sixth sense and how we feel, and we have an empathy with somebody, and then we want to get photographed with a person, or you can see that sort of thing happening.
Yeah, there's a whole science and there's a whole psychology to all of this, and it's being researched more and more. And the rules of the game are going to change, right? As these relationships go from being more interpersonal, in-person conversations and relationships, and we've had to adapt to how we do things because a lot more things are being done online now and digitally. And so that's a whole nother line of psychology and research that is evolving, and obviously things are going to change as we evolve and things evolve and how we do things evolve. So we need to constantly be evolving as well, and how we do things and how we perceive things and how we use the tools available to us. And and these tools that we're talking about today for influence and persuasion, some of these rules have been around for thousands of years, and it's just been part of human existence and communication. But there's always going to be little facets of that are going to change depending on how we're communicating. Look, we're doing Zoom calls now. I mean, I'm on 10 Zoom calls a day now. And, prior to the COVID-19, I was doing much, much fewer Zoom calls. A lot of them were just regular phone calls. Or in-person meetings. So I've had to adapt how I use the tools that we have available, and then the psychological aspect of what we're doing and how we're communicating with people. Jerry Savage, we talk about this all the time, his book, The Four Pillars, he talks about the psychological component of sales from the standpoint of understanding each other's personality profiles and how you communicate with different personality profiles. And that's important to understand as well. But even what we're talking about today fits in with how you communicate with somebody's personality profile. How you can, one personality profile may be more sympathy driven or consensus driven or scientifically driven, and that's what kind of your first, at least my first conversations are probing conversations about how I can better communicate with that person. And then utilize some of the tools that are available to us.
And we've actually got to realize the person we're talking to, because, for example, I was given a lesson yesterday. Excuse me. I was given a lesson yesterday. I was on a Zoom call with somebody from New York, and the person who presented that person from New York said to me, he said, this guy's from New York, just cut to the chase. Don't give him any flowery anything. Just tell him just the bare facts. I said, well, how can he understand it? Don't worry, the bare facts. He just wants to know that. Give him a 3-minute presentation. And I thought, okay. So we could understand that who we're talking to as well. So it all has to do with sympathy. My sympathy is I really want to let him, I don't want to vomit on him, but I just want to expand and let him know. No, just cut to the chase. And that's the personalities that we've got to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that somebody is serious about listening to what we have to say if they only want the 3-minute presentation, because you're just not going to get enough information in that time. And if they're not willing to listen to you for more than 3 minutes, you're probably wasting your time.
That's true.
Because it doesn't matter what you send them, they're not going to watch it if they're not willing to listen for more than 3 minutes.
Good point. Right.
So, if somebody would tell me that, I'd just be like, this is going to be a complete waste of our time, and I don't even think it's worth it. But
Yeah, you're right.
the
Yeah.
last thing that he talks about in the book is authority, and how that can be influential and persuasive. They're basically, people are looking for signals that convey authority, and some of those common ones that we think about are knowledge. What certain person's title may be. Are they a CEO, CFO? Are they a doctor? Do they have a bunch of letters behind their name? Do they wear nice clothes? Do they have a lot of material possessions? And those are who we look up to as authority figures, and we're much more likely to be influenced or persuaded by those people. So from my perspective, the knowledge that we have, the studies that we have available, I want to be an expert on those as much as I possibly can. I'm never going to know everything about nutrition. I'm never going to know everything about antioxidants and supplementation and all of those things. But what I can do is try and learn as much as I possibly can. And what's interesting about that is, we say it all the time that most physicians don't know anything about nutrition. So if you can get that knowledge, even a basic knowledge of nutrition and supplementation and antioxidants and oxidative stress, more than likely you're going to have more knowledge than most of the physicians that we're talking to in that particular subject. So the more knowledgeable you could be, the more you're going to be seen as an authority figure in what we're talking about.
I think it's just lead by example. When I scan, I scan whoever it is, I scan somebody and they scan in the orange or the yellow, wherever. And then they say, well, what do you scan? And when I'm in the gray, which will be purple, by the way, with the new software that comes out, they say, oh my God, what are you doing? Then they want to follow because you're leading by example. They want to do what you're doing. If you've got there, how am I going to get there? So it's just leading by example, and people have admiration for people that are successful, and they get comfortable. We feel comfortable with somebody who's achieved something. If I was to go to the South Pole, I wouldn't even dream about it unless I was with somebody that I was comfortable with, who has the experience, who has the knowledge, who can guide me and help me with that, go there, because otherwise I certainly wouldn't go. So that's why we feel comfortable with somebody who's leading by example.
Yeah, and one of the things that I love about having you on our team, or being on your team, is that you are that authority figure. You talk about this very passionately. You know what you're talking about with all aspects of this business. You're able to connect with people and gain that consensus and the sympathy. All aspects of what we're talking about today. You have a lot of those traits, and it's natural for you. It's who you are. And so it's fantastic being part of your team. And, to your point about the scanning, we talked about this on our team call this week about everybody needing to be on supplements and needing to get their score to a point, because that can be a huge influencer and a huge persuader to people. When you go in and you scan somebody and they scan 15,000, and then you put your hand on that scanner, and Lawrence does this all the time. He puts his hand on that scanner and he's at 70, 80, 90,000. That's a big deal. And that's how he got Andy Feltz. One of the guys on his team was that, Andy put his hand on the scanner and scored lower than Lawrence. And he's like, I got to beat this guy, So, that's how powerful this can be.
Excuse me. Thanks for what you said. There's another point on this whole thing briefly. I know we're just on time, but the scarcity. I'd like to mention something on the scarcity because it's all part of this is the sixth point.
Oh, sorry.
And the scarcity, I just want to mention this. And I'll mention this in terms of South America, because when all the products are available, everybody's, yeah, I'll get to it. As soon as there was a hiccup with supply chain, and there were a couple of products they couldn't get, suddenly everybody wanted them. So I don't know if Pharmanex understood this as a by mistake or they did on purpose, but guess what? Now they put out a batch of product, and it's like the product's going to last for supposedly 6 months, and in 2 days it's sold out. Because now everybody says, I got to get it before it's not there anymore. So the scarcity is something that we live in this abundance, and it's like going to a buffet. We've got too much stuff there, but it's when it's not there that we want it. In fact, there's some, you might go to a buffet and they got 64 things on there, and they don't happen to have whatever, and you say, but that's what I wanted. So the scarcity thing is where we've got the possibility in our company to also make people understand that, we're so privileged we got everything, and therefore they don't feel like they need it now. Whereas if it's not there, that's what it happens.
Yeah. We want what we can't have. It's human nature.
Exactly.
Opportunities are more palatable when the availability is limited. You see this every year at Christmas time, right? There's the hot toy of the season, and everybody has to have it. And the more limited it gets, people start driving 100 miles to try and get it or find it online, frantically searching online to find the last one. And, that just drives, it's very persuasive and influential. People want to keep up with the Joneses and want what they have. And when they can't have it, they'll go to any lengths to get it.
I accidentally did this, not on purpose. It was totally by accident. I was talking to a doctor a few years ago, and she said, well, are the scanners available? And I said, well, I don't know. We've got to figure out, because at the moment we've got kind of a waiting list. And that's when she said, have you got the agreement? Because I said, when I said there was a waiting list, she was like, hold on, I need it now. so it was that inadvertent thing. That's why I'm mentioning the scarcity thing, because that's what it is. People want something when they can't have it, or when it's scarce.
Yep, absolutely. Well, it looks like we're at 10:03. So
yep. So anyway, ethically, this is the whole point of this, is that we can make this business very successful, having fun and doing everything in the most ethical way, which helps with the integrity and credibility which the company allows us to have, and which we must have on our own as well. So thanks everybody for being on the call. Dan, thanks as usual.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Blessings to you all. Blessings to everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. That was really good.
Thank you.